Hey guys, welcome to Burr Cashflow Investors. So today we have to do the drawing for a couple of people, and we're doing the drawing here in a few minutes. I thought you said there's something. Oh, this is for two VIP tickets to the 3 day. So we're going to be doing the drawing here in a few minutes, but today is Friday, and it is generally supposed to be story time on Friday. But today we're going to kind of go through a few important issues that we discussed in terms of real estate, the market, where things are going. And so I want to kind of go through those because this is as we go into the winter market now, the market is changing big time. So this is something that you should be paying attention to. So number one is let's just start with the big issue in terms of the Airbnb market, where it is. By the way, if you have not registered yet for the 3 day, the 3 day is coming up next weekend, which is the 17th, 18th, and 19th. Make sure you register andrewholmesevents.com. And if you're bringing a friend, you're bringing a spouse, make sure that you get them registered. As you can bring them as a kind of buy one get one free. So you can bring a spouse, you can bring a friend, no problem. But just make sure that you let us know. So when you register, you'll get all the information, and then you can let us know about getting that done. So having said that, let's get moving. So today we're going to kind of go over a few different things. Interest rates, we're going to go talk about the current state of the Airbnb market. We're going to talk about kind of where the market is going, what's going on with the flips, what's going on with the rental market, what is going on with vacancies, and the whole change with the new real estate issue that came in for real estate agents. So there's a host of things to cover. So let's jump right into it. So first of all, let's start with the Airbnbs. So the reason I'm bringing up the Airbnbs is because if you're somebody who listens to different podcasts, listens to different things online on whatever different platforms, what has happened is a lot of people are making a lot of videos about a couple things. They're making number one videos about, oh my God, everything is over in the real estate market. Number two, they're making videos about, oh my God, the real estate Airbnb crash. Now, whenever we do something like this, we can make a video, we can actually have a conversation about what is going on in the Airbnb market, what is going on in other things. And I don't have to, and I've said this many, many times, I don't have to go 30 years, oh my God, right? And then say, oh, and then explain why, because that's based on the algorithm for Facebook, maybe TikTok, maybe Instagram, any of these things. You have to do something to grab the attention of the audience. So here's where we are. So if you look at the Airbnb market, a lot of times what people like to do is they like to generalize. And what they like to generalize is, oh, this is how it is. Well, not necessarily, right? So what is happening? If I look at the Florida market, which is a much more seasonal market, versus if I look at, say, the market in Tennessee, which is going to be a destination market. Even Florida is going to be a destination market, but Tennessee, like Smoky Mountains, some of these markets, right? That's going to be based on, the Smoky Mountains is going to be based on much more of a supply demand, meaning how many hotel rooms, how many Airbnbs, and what time of the year or month that people are going there. Now, what is going to make a difference is that the amount of inventory coming online is also going to make a difference. So if you're, let's say, in Chicago, Cleveland, Philly, right, in your market, how many Airbnbs were present before? And then is the demand equally proportional to the amount of Airbnb that were present, right? If you take the Florida market as such, on the whole, if you look at new construction, well, what's going on in new construction market, right? And this will all go back to the Airbnbs. That's where I started the point. So if you look at the new construction market in the Florida markets, in the lot of the areas, what's happening is the builders basically are kind of not able to sell the properties at the crazy prices they were. Right? So it's pulling back a little bit. Now, does that mean it's the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. You're just not going to make as much money. So let's say if the person was going to make, 100,000 of the property, they may only make 80, or they may, even at 80, it may seem like, oh, that's pretty good profit. But what if they only make 50? Or what if they only make 40? So that sort of a pullback is going on a little bit. Why? A couple of different reasons. Number one, it's the interest rates, right? The interest rates have basically been kicked up to a point where people are like, oh my God, my payments are getting high. So that's just a reality of the market. Now, does that mean it's all doom and gloom? No. Now, if you're really upside down in a property, can that mean problems for you? Absolutely, right? So there's a correction going on in the market, no question about it. Now, I don't believe, looking at all the data points, that it's like, oh my God, it's going to be worse than 2008, right? It's like, that's like saying, something right now we have two proxy wars where United States is fighting, one in Ukraine, one in Israel. Oh my God, it's worse than ever been. Well, yeah, it may seem like it. It's not good. I mean, nobody wants, but yet, guess what? Right? It's at ever. If you look at history of the globe, basically, there's like generally today meaning nowadays, right? There has never been a time where we have had as much peace as there is today, right? I mean, now that doesn't mean there's not a lot of people getting killed in those two wars. So please don't get me wrong, but I'm saying historical context, right? That we have come from a much worse time than we're today. Yet we always like to imagine, and this is human nature and tendency. Oh my God, it's bad. The kids today, if you're bringing them up today, it was much better in the 50s and 60s. That was the golden time. We always has nostalgia. We always have nostalgia about how things were. But I don't think you would want to go back necessarily, quote unquote, to the 50s, where most Americans had one car, right? We didn't have any cell phones, right? All of these things that a lot of times what we put that up in a as something that we reminisce about, and we go, oh my God, that's how we have seen. That is not the reality. And so what I'm saying is same thing with the real estate market, that I don't think it's going back to 2008. Why? Because simply the inventory of properties right now is not available. Right now, if there was a lot of distress in the market, now does that mean there's not distress? That's not absolutely the case. There is a lot of distress. A lot of it is still not online, especially if I look at the Chicago market right now. There are about 19 to 20,000 pre-foreclosures that are on the market. If you look at the amount of properties that are still in forbearance, that were still, the can was kicked down the road, right? There are still a lot of properties that had happened. Now, is it possible that over the year, next year, whatever, is if 30, that number may go to 30,000? Sure. It's very possible. You can go to 35, yes. But what you'll see is in the historical context of where it was. At one point during 2008, 9, 10, the number was close to 120,000 properties. So when you put that in that context, where we are, it's not a bad place, right? Because people are not, now nobody likes this kind of inflation. Nobody likes it. Yet we're not in a place where it's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Is a correction needed? Yes. And a correction is healthy. So what I'm saying is this: if you're new construction, when you look at the market, especially in markets like Florida, where you have a lot of land, where you're doing a lot of new construction, if the amount of properties that are available for the people to buy are more, then guess what? The prices are getting corrected a little bit, which is normal, which is natural. Now, if you have properties, like we have a bunch of new construction properties in Florida, we're renting them out. Is the renting a little bit slower this year than it was last year? Oh, big time. Well, why? Because what happened was last year, there was not a single place available that was available for rent. Well, guess what? This year, there are 150 townhouses came up the street, kind of like 5 miles down the road. There's a bunch of other properties, even from Mastery, right? All of these properties. And yet, what happened to the interest rates? At the same time, the interest rates went up from 5% to 8.5%, 8.8%, 9%, right? They jumped up that much on a commercial rate. So is that going to have an impact? Sure. Does that mean that's end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. Right? Think about this as a car accident, right? If you get into a fender bender, right, that's what they always just fender touch, or if your fender gets crushed, or if you get into a terrible accident where a car is basically completely mashed, oh my God, it's going to get totaled. Or you get into an accident where now not only is the car done, but you get hurt, or you are in critical health, or you're dead. Now, depends on which situation you're in, right? If you're dead, then it doesn't matter anyways. But if you get hurt terribly, now are you worried about the car? No. Why? Because what is most important? Your health is most important, right? So what I'm trying to say is this, that yes, are there changes in the market? Absolutely 100%, right? Is it all bad? Actually, no, not as a real estate investor. when the market changes, when the markets are tougher, there are opportunities open up. Why? Because a certain amount of investors, certain group of people are going to get more depressed than the others because they, oh my God, market's changing. I'm scared. I'm not going to get in. Right? Yet that's where you start seeing a lot of opportunities. Now, does that mean, on the other hand, like say for me, if I see there's a lot of opportunities opening up here in Illinois, in Florida, on the resale market, not new construction, but the resale market. Resale market was not available 2 years ago, right? Because those properties were selling too fast. As an investor, it was very tough to compete in that market. But yet today, what's happening? A lot of opportunities are opening up in the resale market, right? In the properties, basically, where this is not new construction. Yet in the new construction market, the market's pulled back a little bit. Now, does that mean it's pulled back in resale market? Yes, also. But there are more opportunities that are opening up on that side of the market. And so there's always this ebb and flow that we have to realize. Now, what is the effect in terms of rent? If you look at the rental market in Chicago, is the rental market still good? In Chicago, the rental market is still good, but we are going into, we just finished October, November, December, January, February. November, December, January, February, October, November, December, January, February, generally, this is a general statement I'm making, generally are not the best times to rent. You're going to have, if you put a property on the market, you're going to have a harder time renting the property, and especially finding good quality tenants. That becomes much tougher. So you may have properties that are sitting on the market November, December, January. You may have people come in, make rental applications, but the quality of the rental applications is not going to be as good, because generally people who are thinking ahead, generally as a large majority, they don't want to move during the colder months in Chicago. But yet you go into March, April, May, June, July, all those months, boom, right? Suddenly all the inventory is gone. Like come February, all the inventory goes away. And this has happened many years that I've seen this happen. It happens year over year. This is just how it is. Now, if you look at it in winter, you're going, oh man, Andrew, the properties aren't being rented. This is not happening. That's not happening. Well, no, this has been happening. It happens every year, right? So this is nothing new. Now, will it happen this year that maybe they're not renting, they're taking even a little bit longer? Sure. Is it possible? Sure. Why? Because guess what's happened? Interest rates have gone up, things have gone up, things have become more expensive, right? Rents have climbed. And so it may have reached a point where it's gotten to a point where the rents are a little bit too high for the potential tenants that are available in today's market. And this is something most people don't understand. People who make less money, they pay more in terms of rent in proportion to their income than people who make more money. Why? Because they may have challenged credit, so they may go to properties that are overpriced just to get in, and then they may get themselves in financial trouble. We see this happening all the time. So you have to be aware of the situation, and we have to be able to think clearly. Okay, where is the market? What is going on? And what is the impact? Now, if I look at the Airbnb markets in Florida versus Tennessee versus, say, Chicago market, which is going to be more of a blah market, right? In Chicago, the Airbnbs still are doing well. Now, are they doing as well compared to, say, a year ago or 2 years ago? Well, it depends, right? It depends how much availability you had, right? A year or two ago, I mean, the biggest people in terms of talking about this happens to be us, right? We have in the Chicago market as a platform, right? One of the biggest amount of platform that we have is because of the amount of meetings we do, because of the amount of conferences we do. We have the biggest platform. So there's somebody who's going, oh my God, you got to get in, you got to get in. Guess what happens? A lot of people from Mastery jump in. Other people hear about jump in. A lot of other people jump in. Now what happens? You have a area where you have an Airbnb. Suddenly other people start popping up with a bunch of Airbnbs. And then maybe your occupancy goes down a little bit. Are those subtle changes going to happen? Absolutely. And that's going to happen because the amount of profit that could be made on an Airbnb was artificially very high. Now, there are always going to be some pockets where you've reached a point where you have a lot of demand, but yet there are not as many housing available. So people who have Airbnbs that are currently existing, they tend to do very well time after time after time. And with Airbnbs, it's all based on location. Certain locations, certain suburbs tend to do much better because they have a lot of inbound traffic, right? And so that makes a big difference. But if you look at Florida in general, right, certain parts of Florida, where you could not find an Airbnb for the love of God. Today, if I look at it, there's a lot of properties that are available. So because there's a lot of competition, now why is there a lot of competition? There's a lot of competition because a lot of new construction was done. New construction was done, so there's more inventory. There's more inventory, so that creates a lot of competition, right? It's really that simple. That's kind of what happens whenever you have a plenty of a product that is available. So if I'm looking at the numbers now in Florida, even it's going to depend. Are you in Port Charlotte? Are you in Punta Gorda? Are you in Sarasota by the beach? Right. So it's going to depend, and it's going to be specific to that particular location. So is just get so oh my God, all Airbnb is going south. No, I don't think so. Right. But is there a change in the market? 100% there is a change in the market, but it is not necessarily all bad. It is going to depend on where you are and what location do you have. And the other part of it depends big time is what is your cost basis in a property, right? So some of the properties that I have here in the Illinois market, my cost basis is a little bit low compared to what the property is actually worth, right? So if the property is worth, say, 350, my basis in the property, meaning purchase plus rehab in the property, I'm in that deal for say 200 or 210. Now, what is my mortgage on that property? My mortgage on that property, including a utilities, including lawn care, including management expense, all of that stuff may be right at say 3,000, right? So a couple $1,000 for the mortgage. Then you have utilities, your management, you have all that stuff, right? So I may be at 3. So, and then for you, if you basically your basis in the property is 320 or 330, right? Both of us have 2 Airbnbs, but both the Airbnbs are not same, or both the rentals are not the same, even though we have a similar property. Why? Because it's based on your basis in the deal, meaning your basis is 210 or your basis is 300, right? That will make a difference. And so when somebody goes, well, I really cash flow pretty decent on this property. Why? Because my total expense, carrying cost every single month is higher. Is lower than your carrying cost or your expense structure in that particular property. So that makes a huge, huge, huge difference. Is what is your cost structure? What is your all-in cost in the deal on the property? So I have a property that I bought last year, and my basis in that property was about 175 for purchase, about 36 or so for rehab and other things. So let's just say 40, right? So if I bought it for 175 plus another 40, I'm in the deal somewhere around 215 to 220. So my loan on that property, I put a loan on the property for 200,000. So if I have a loan on the property for 200,000, even with the higher interest rates today and the cost of insurance, cost of management, all that stuff, right? I'm good at 3,000. So if I collect somewhere around, say, $5,000 in terms of total revenue coming in after fees, after all that stuff, right? Still, I'm netting out about $1,250 to $1,600 depending on the month. In the winter months, especially when we talk about November, December, these months can be slower. Now you have some holidays, so those holiday bookings get done quickly. But then the rest of the month, right, there are certain gaps. So you have to make sure that you get those gaps filled. So those are all going to be things that are going to make a difference. So in general, if you look at it, we're in areas where too many properties were bought. So let's just say if you take an area like Scottsdale, right, in Phoenix and some of these areas where people bought bigger properties for Airbnb and they were going great, right? Some of those properties are going to suffer. But yet, if you have a bread and butter house where your basis in the property is not that high, you're still going to be okay. Maybe you're not going to make as much revenue, but you're going to be okay. See, that's what you have to look at is what is your basis in a property, and in relation to that, what is your total revenue coming in? To say, man, 2 years ago, I was making, every single month, I was doing 10 grand on gross revenue. My carrying cost of the property was 3,500. I made so much money. Well, guess what? Market doesn't remain forever in that way. You enjoyed a great time. What did you do with that money? Did you reinvest it back into more properties or paying down your properties? Or what are you going to do? But still today, if you're doing about $1,500, so the rule of thumb I use is I'm happy with $500 per month with none of my actual money stuck in the deal, $500 to $700 per month in a rental property, right? In terms of cash flow. So then on an Airbnb, I look at it that, okay, if it makes about $1,500 as a base, after all expenses, management costs, all that kind of stuff, then I feel happy. Then I feel, okay, this is pretty good, right? So you have to have that benchmark. Now let's look at as far as the inventory. We talked about that a little bit, was the inventory of properties that are available on the market. Guys, if you look at it across the country, and I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is terrible, right? I don't believe this is terrible. I genuinely believe that a lot of people are not going to sell the properties because they can't, because they have low interest rates locked in. And they're basically saying, hey, listen, that I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to keep the property because I'm going to sacrifice a little bit, and maybe I want to move right now. But guess what? I'm not going to move because I don't want to give up that interest rates. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that means that because the rates, that's forcing people to make financially better, prudent decisions. Because for a family to plan and say, hey, I'm not going to pay those high interest rates, there's absolutely, in my opinion, nothing wrong with it. I think that makes sense. And I think that is a prudent thing to do. So this is something really, really important that you have to keep in your mind, that if somebody is doing that, then that is actually good. I don't believe, unless there's a flood of properties that hits the market and there are this many properties for sale and there's this many buyers, unless that happens, it's not going to matter, right? It has have things softened. Absolutely, things have softened. So if you're in a C area, guess what's happening? In a C area, people are having a hard time qualifying for houses. We're going into the winter months, or we're in the winter months, and that is softening the market a little bit. If you're in Florida, if you're in the warmer climate, then guess what? The winter months over there, they have a stronger market because more people are there, and a lot of people that are snowbirds, or a lot of people that go from the north, go there and they're like, oh my God, this is a place I've always wanted to retire to, and I'm going to buy more houses. So if you look at the sheer volume of properties that are available versus the sheer volume of people that want to buy, still the buyer pool is higher than the number of properties that are available, and there's not as much distress as there was. So is there a pullback? Maybe a little bit, but does that mean that it's end of the world? Absolutely not. Right? Today, the problem is if anybody has to do without anything a little bit, right? It's like, oh my God, it's the end of civilization. And that is just not the reality of real estate, right? You cannot look at it this way. You can't buy a stock and say it's always going to go up, right? It may not sometimes, right? And if with real estate, it's the exact same thing. So absolutely no reason to worry about it. But what you should be doing if you're a real estate investor is you should be doubling down and buying. Why? Because the market is changing, that creates opportunities. I'm seeing that on the foreclosure end. Banks are willing to cut prices. Just this week, I had two properties accepted, which one property I was basically bidding on this property for about 28 times I bid on the property. For the last year and a half, I have been bidding on the property, and every time they would put it back. Every time they'd say no. Every time they'd say no. And guess what? 2 days ago, they're like, okay, yes, we'll take the deal, right? And I got it about 35,000 less than otherwise what I would have paid, right? I was perfectly happy to pay that, but guess what? They finally came and they had a lower price placed. I'm like, boom, it's a done deal, right? And this happens, right? So the problem is that you can't just go bid on it once and say, oh my God, I can't get it. Or, oh, I bid on the property, Andrew, 5, 6, 7 times. Guess what? The need is yours. It's not the bank's need. If the need is yours, you have got to stay on it. And if you just stay on it, you're going to find properties. It's just a numbers game. At the end of the day, the more you go to bat, the more opportunities you're going to find. It's no different for me, and it's absolutely no different for you. So this is really important to keep in mind. The next topic, which has been a big topic that has been discussed quite a bit, is that whole issue that is going on with buyer's agents. And that for those people that are not aware, recently there were a couple of big historic lawsuits against real estate companies that when a seller pays a commission, right, the seller agrees to a 5% commission, 2.5% generally, or 6%, whatever it is. Generally, a part of the commission is being paid to the buyer, right? And basically, this is a case that's been going on. And recently, The brokers lost, NAR lost. This was against big brokerage companies. And basically, the verdict was $1.8 billion. It's coming to Illinois. Illinois already there is a big class action case. There's big class action case in a lot of places. So 100%. It's not whether it's going to happen. It is happening as we speak, right? 100%. The real estate industry is changing, and a bunch of agents, right, are going to quit because a bunch of agents that are not making a lot of money selling houses, right? We know the average agent sells 2 or 3 houses. If they're not making a lot of money, they're going to get out because it's going to get tougher. Now, does that mean good agents are not going to be in the business? I don't believe that. I just feel that commissions are going to be attacked, right? Because that is a place where you can make a lot of money, quite honestly, right? For putting out fires for people. Right, wrong, indifferent, morality of it, I'm not judging, right? I mean, like for me, it always makes me mad whenever I'm going to go bid. I mean, I want to buy a property. And when I want to buy a property and I call the listing agent, they're like, oh, no, we don't do dual agency, right? I mean, it's like, hey, man, don't charge me, give the seller a break on the amount of money you're going to charge them. But why won't you let me just, and you don't have to do any agency. I will represent myself. You don't have to, but you refuse that. What happens is it takes away opportunity for me, right? And I have to go to another agent who knows nothing about the property. Right? If you don't know anything about the property, I know more about real estate than you do, and you may be a phenomenal agent. You may be a great, great, great agent, but I'm sorry, but you don't do as many investment properties as I do. This is what I do. I don't do retail houses. So you may be even my own retail properties. I don't go and list it myself because that's not something that I'm good at, or I'm not going to go basically talk to the buyers. I'm just not. So in the investment side, this is what I do. So I want to negotiate with the listing agent. I want to be the person who does that. But yet it hurts me as a buyer whenever a listing agent won't sell me the property because their office has a rule that they won't do dual agency. Now, in dual agency, what happens is that the seller is paying for both sides of the commission. That's just what happens in general. And it's more about representation. Is the agent representing the seller, or is the agent representing the buyer? My point is, I'm willing to sign off that I have no age. I don't want any agency. You don't have to represent me at all. You're just acting as ministerial acts for on my side, meaning, I mean, and I can just have my attorney directly deal with that. But a lot of times, so there are a lot of things, right? And mind you, I've been a real estate agent. I was a real estate agent since 2008, all the way through last year when I sent my license back. Beginning of this year, I think it was, or maybe last year sometime when I sent my license back. So it's not like I'm trying to attack agents, but guess what? The industry is going to change. It's not, and for people who change with it, it'll be great. For people who don't change with it, they'll be gone by the wayside. This is just what it is. Happened to Uber, happened to a million other businesses, is going to happen to real estate, right? So this is something important to keep in mind if you're looking at it. If you're an agent, if you're an investor, if you're in that business, right? You need to be paying attention to this and start building your own portfolio. You've helped a lot of other people buy properties. Why not you, right? And if you have not started, best place to be is come to the 3-day event. Show up there. 17th, 18th, and 19th are the dates for that. Again, that's 17th, 18th, and 19th are the dates. Register on andrewholmesevents.com. And then we have 2 drawings we're supposed to do. From yesterday, we had the big vendor showcase. There were about 200 plus people here. So really good, great to have them. We had about 15, 18 vendors over here. So we'll pick out 2 tickets for 2 people. So, okay. Number 1, the person is Pam Palacios. You know who Pam Palacios is, Lori? I'm sorry? Oh, that's Pam Palacios is Shiznit? Oh, no. She's already, okay, so she's already from the Mastery, right? Okay. So how about Edgar Tapia? Edgar Tapia. So Edgar Tapia, if you're watching, or Lori will reach out to you, or Miss Jennifer will reach out. So Edgar, you and your spouse or significant other or friend you want to bring, you have 2 tickets, VIP tickets to the 3-day, and you have, yeah. Okay, all right. Registered. Pam is already registered, so it's Ed Tapia. So I'm going to put this on the side. All right, guys, we'll talk to you same time, same place on Monday, 5:30. Again, make sure we're at the last bit because once the tickets are gone at this point, we already closed out VIP. VIP is done, so that's you can't go as a VIP. So the last tickets that are left, you have just a couple days to react to it. And super thrilled for Friday 17th next week, andrewholmesevents.com. Talk to you soon.